Hi everyone, I'm Beth Hardy with Heart Tones Birth Services in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm here with my good friend Leslie, and we're just gonna have a little conversation today about inducing lactation and your journey with that. And so I wanna just let you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and your parenting journey so far, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, y'all. So I'm Leslie, and I induce lactation. I have a kid who's 2.5 and some change on the way to 3, and we're still chest feeding. And Beth was our doula.
Yay.
So we had a great, and I live in Salt Lake City, and we had a really surprisingly amazing and welcoming birth community around us. My partner and I are queer. He's trans. He carried our baby, and I fed our baby, and that was our queer division of labor.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I was so honored to be part of your birth experience and Jacoby's birth experience, and it was amazing. So, how did you already always know you were gonna induce if you had a kid, or how did you come to the decision to induce lactation and be the one to chest feed?
I mean, I knew of a lot of historical examples and cultural examples of times that people who have not given birth have chest fed a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And some
Keep
of those
talking. I'm gonna talk.
some of I wanted to have that relationship with our kid from the beginning. And my partner has had chest surgery. He's trans, and so he wasn't going to be able to feed our kid. And I know lots of people make all kinds of different decisions about how to feed their babies. And I had done some research about chest feeding and the benefits of it, and really wanted to offer that to our kid. And I felt like my body could do it. I just had the sense. I mean, I've had an embodied practice for a long time, and I just felt confidence that I could do it. I felt excited about the weirdness of making milk without giving birth. So yes.
Yeah. Awesome. What were some of the biggest hurdles you had to overcome, either before, in the prep stages, or in the process, or anything that you were kind of unexpectedly kind of blindsided by with the whole thing, the whole experience?
I mean, as you know, the way that people talk about chest feeding, oftentimes it's there's this narrative or aura of it's the most natural thing around it. And for some people, formula is the most natural thing, and bottles are the most natural thing. And for some people, for a lot of us, nursing is not just come naturally, right? It's actually really difficult a lot of times. And one thing was I have a very driven, goal-oriented type A, perhaps recovering perfectionist personality. And so it was a project for me, and I was completely devoted to it and focused on it. And so I started many months in advance. When we found out he was germinating, that's how we talked about it. I started seeing a lactation consultant in Massachusetts right away, and was can I do this? And she was yeah. And so there's online, I think it's called the Newman Goldfarb or something like that. There's a whole regiment online which y'all can look up. It's available and free. You can download it. And so I started taking hormones, birth control. I was over 40, so I think it was progesterone that I was taking. And then you take that for the method was to take that for a bunch of months, and then at some point you stop and create this fake birth, for your, or not fake, but you simulate the experience of a birth. And we talked about it that way, as a birth. And when we had my chest feeding birth, we went and bought a bunch of plants to celebrate that the birth had happened. And
That's amazing.
Totally. We bought some jasmine plants that smelled so beautiful and brought it home. And it was a big celebration that day. And that's the day that you stop taking the birth control and you start taking domperidone, which is this, it's a galactic, it induces lactation. And so it tells your body oh, I just stopped taking that hormone, and now I've got these milk making hormones. And I started pumping really religiously 10 times a day. So that was super intense. That was a job, right?
Yeah.
And so I started pumping 7 minutes for a few days, and I think within a week I was pumping by 10 minutes and then 15 minutes, and so it was 10 times a day, and I was waking myself up in the night, twice in the night, to pump. to simulate a baby.
Yeah.
And that was really hard.
It's a huge commitment.
Yeah,
Like,
it was.
Oh my gosh.
And so I pumped for 2 months, I think. 3 months. No, I pumped for 3 months, 3 full months, 10 times a day before he got there.
Wow.
And I can't remember when, but at some point I started making milk, like little tiny droplets. And I was like, like saving them in little bags and taking pictures of the milk and stuff. And so, I mean, that was difficult, but it was, I was committed to it, and it was exciting, and it was a form of labor that I had like the resource of time to be able to do, and like my job flexibility, like I was able to do that. And when the baby came, it was incredible because I was so stressed about what would happen, like when, when our baby was here, like were they gonna latch and, or be confused about my smell. And we had, we were right. I was able to catch the baby and have the baby on my chest immediately. And we had like rubbed Jacoby's smell and juice like all over my chest. But the baby just, if you recall, he just latched right on. He just knew right away where to be.
Yeah.
And
so powerful,
so
magical.
And Jacoby and I just remember that feeling of him, like the baby smashed between us, and so Gigi just knew right what to do and knew that I was there. And I think that also is just really disrupts this sort of biological narrative of family and this idea that like babies are this one way, and like, no, like we have a queer family, and that baby knew that in their cells from the moment that they entered into this world. They knew like, this is the body I came from, and this is the body I eat from, and these are my bodies, these are my people, and it really disrupts all this, like, and I hope that like anybody that's like adopting a baby, or right, that like babies understand queerness, right? They can feel where they're supposed to receive what they need from. And that was amazing. The question you asked was about hurdles, and in the beginning it was hard to get him to latch and to eat enough, and he had a lip tie, which here, I don't know if this is everywhere, but regionally here there's like a lot of lip and tongue, what do you call those, like, you know what I'm talking about? Where it's constricted?
Ties.
Yeah, the ties. Okay. So we did have like one of those little procedures to release it. And once we did that, it was like so painful to watch that happen that I was like, are we doing something horrible? Yeah. But once we did it, immediately he latched onto me, like within 5 minutes of that lip tie thing, he was on me again. And he, the beginning was really hard, and I'm sure actually you might have a better memory than me of like some of those early weeks when like I was so invested in him eating, and really, I think that's really common to anyone who's chest feeding perhaps, right? Like we would like weigh him, and we went to this awesome clinic that was collaborative where you would go and there'd be all these other chest feeders, and Jacoby would come with, and we would go there as a family every week and like weigh Gigi, and but it was really hard in the beginning. And also the other hard thing was Jacoby was he had just given birth, and while he'd had an amazing birth and was just a powerhouse and incredible, and it was like pretty quick, he was like recovering from birth, and I am disabled, and was like, so there we were using the SNS, the supplemental nursing system, which we still use, and in the very beginning it's really hard to use those, and we had this bottle and a cord coming out of it that then we had to like match up to my nipple, and he was having a hard time latching alone, and so getting that SNS cord in and having him latch at the same time was so intense. And we were like going to like physical therapists and chiro and all these other folks to try to help us like figure out how to help him latch, and we found out that like laying down, side lying was like the way that he wanted to latch, and so we figured that out. He started latching, but for the first month or something, Jacoby had to help me. He had to like hold the bottle while I held the baby's head and put the cord in, and it was so hard to get it in, and so it took 2 of us to nurse him.
That it was very labor intensive, time intensive. Both of you had to be like always there together.
Exactly. And he was like recovering from birth, like trying to sit on one side of his sacrum, and like holding the bottle, and I was like, no, right here, you're dropping it, no, wait, it's going out, like, so it took 2 of us, really, and really hard, it really did take a village to feed that baby. And there were a lot of times where like I had a lot of, and I'm sharing this, I know people get pressured in all different directions, but the way I got pressured was by people being like, bottles are okay, like you can feed him a bottle, and like just bottle, you're trying too hard. This shouldn't be so hard. And like, even Jacoby at some point was like, I think we should just give him a bottle, and I was like, no, like I am working so hard. It's supply and demand, like, no, I want this, I want this. I know that this is right for us, and it's going to take some time. And it wasn't easy, but for me, it was the right thing. And I felt pressured by so many outside people, like, why are you doing something that's so hard? And it was like, well, because this is what I want for our family. Like, I want this possibility and this opportunity, and it worked. And like, it was like pretty soon for us, it seemed like forever, but it was pretty soon after that he was eating, and I was able to feed him by myself, and that was a big milestone. And then there was the usual things, like when he started biting, that was a really big thing, and I almost quit. I because I was just like, this is horrible. But kept going. And through each like difficult nursing period, I was like, is this the time where like maybe this is it? But like kept feeding him, and then we got to like these other amazing moments with nursing, and now he's 2.5, 3, like he's in between there, and we have this. It's just such a sweet relationship we've had, and away from hurdles, to talk about like just the joys and pleasures of it. We have this embodied connection, and our baby has this embodied connection to Jacoby because he lived there for 9 months, and Jacoby carried him, and he and I have this embodied connection because we shared this practice for 3 years, and I really feel like that helped me as the non-gestational parent, like feel participation and agency and connection. And it would have been really hard for Jacoby to figure out that SNS thing, like just after birthing, and that's not really something that he was like wanting per se, but I also think the division of labor was great. Like he had to do this really hard thing, and then I did this really hard thing, and then we did it together. And there's something about sharing not just the labor, but the like the bonding that was really incredibly special. And I think I told you recently, like, I think this is one of the most powerful things I've ever done with my body. And I don't really relate to my boobs. Like, if there were moments where I could have like gotten rid of them, I might have. Like, my gender is not oriented around like chest, breasts, whatever. But I'm so glad I kept them, and I have them to do this because it feels so right to me that we had this. And I feel so amazed that my body did this. And like, I can't believe that my body was like, okay, like,
here you go.
And the milk came out. And, I feel really identified with all the critters and creatures in the world that make milk. And I was very intense about like, how much was he eating in the beginning? And now it's just like, are we connecting? Like, yeah, we're connecting. Okay. And is he's done? Okay.
That's
he's done. There was a lot of like, wanting to control in the beginning, and now there's a lot of surrender. It was a like beautiful exercise in surrender.
It's amazing. What did you do? Did you supplement your milk with other milk, and how did you go about that process of like finding and then securing that, and just that whole thing?
More division of labor. Jacoby deserves all the props for going on the like all those websites for what are they? Human milk for human babies, and Eats on Feast.
On Facebook.
So he was like always on there looking for milk, and we've had donor milk the whole time. And it's also, that's another beautiful queer sharing of bodies and body fluids, that you just like meet somewhere in a parking lot, and they drop off their bodily fluids, and you're like, thanks, bye, here's some bags, like, that is profoundly queer and beautiful to me. And it's such a gift, and like I feel this incredible gratitude to all of these milk makers all around the state of Utah who have, and others who are traveling here, who offered us this milk with generosity and without transaction. And so we've been supplementing with human milk the whole time. So Gigi has had my milk and all these other people's milk. Nachitos milk, like right now he's drinking Nachitos milk, but we don't know what the mom's name is actually. It says Nachitos, so we're like, here's Nachitos milk, thank you, Nachito. And amazing. And Beth's milk and Marie's milk, and like we just have this long list of all these names, and I want to do some kind of artwork with it, when it's over, just like out of this connection to like all of these immune systems that are part of our kids' immune system
Yeah.
now. So yes, we did the supplemental nursing system the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I'll say to folks who want to do this is that even with my intense, like all in effort, I, in the beginning was like, I'm going to make all the milk. And I had met with a lactation consultant that was like, you might be able to do that. You might be able to provide the baby the full milk that they need. But it was very clear once like all the milk I had made in that 3 months was gone, I think within 2 weeks. And so we were like, I had to accept like, oh, I'm not going to be able to make enough milk to feed the baby. And that was so hard for me emotionally. Like I was so attached to being my body fluids. But again, queer, collaborative, horizontal sharing, that wasn't necessary. But I needed to use that supplemental nursing system the whole time, like from the beginning until the end. And there are times when he'll nurse on me and just like take my milk, but it's very little. I don't produce enough to like feed him completely.
Yeah. Where did you get your supplemental nursing system, the actual pieces?
I bought that system called Lactaid, which is a lot of people really like it. It's these little bags and you can kind of tie it around your neck, and but it wastes all these bags, and I have an environmentalist partner. And also, if the baby's drinking more milk, then the bags can hold. You have to like have multiple of them. And so we used this contraption, which was just a bottle, a baby bottle, and then and Susan Johnson of MotherFed taught us this, took the nipple and turned it upside down and put a little cut in the nipple, and then had one of those cords coming out of it. So it's kind of a homemade system. And I did have a little bag that I wore around my neck sometimes, but another thing that's really useful is, those beanbag things for beer drinkers that sit on the couch. I just bought one of those. Yeah, and you can sit the milk thing in that and then have the cord come out. So I learned tricks as a crip, as a disabled person, to not have to hold that bottle so that I could. And then we had this really great beanbaggy Nest pillow. So I need a setup too. We can't, I'm not able, I had this romantic idea of people who are able to just pop their boob out and feed anywhere. We couldn't do that. And when we travel and stuff, we take the pillow with, and we have to make sure there's a comfortable chair there, and we have to it's not a natural, easeful, wherever we are, just pop it out. It requires getting into position, having a place where I can hold that thing, so yeah.
Wow. That's amazing commitment to do that. And I'm sure, Gigi has benefited to a point where we can't even conceptualize how much he's benefited from this experience, and will continue to benefit from that as just he grows up and just remembers this is what my parents did for me. It's pretty amazing.
Who knows? And also, he might have no fucking memory of all that. You know what I mean?
Well, yes.
In the beginning, I was had these romantic notions about that. And sometimes now I'm just he'll feel that energetically. And we have this physical bond. Yeah. And frankly, I'll remember it. As his parent, the gift of being able to feed him feels like one of the most amazing gifts of my life. So,
that's awesome.
As well as himself and being able to have the partner and family that I have together. But I don't know how much he'll remember about this or not.
Well, yeah, and not that he even would remember. I guess that you would tell him later, or share the pictures. It would be
I pumped 10 times a day for 3 months
for you.
Never
mind. Okay, moving on. Okay, let me see. What support do you wish you would have had, or did you feel like you had an adequate support? Is there anything if you were to do it all again, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would do differently support-wise, or just in general, the whole process?
I felt so supported. I did work with 3 or 4 different lactation consultants, and I highly recommend it. Oh, I forgot the biggest gratitude that needs to go out is to Alyssa Schnell. Schnell, Lallyssa. Alyssa Schnell is incredible, and how I figured out how to do this process and support myself was through her book called Breastfeeding Without Birth, and her podcast, which is called Breastfeeding Outside the Box. She is incredible. And I also had multiple sessions with her over Zoom. Awesome. I had, as a lactation consultant, and she's incredibly skillful. And she was an adoptive parent who fed her, induced lactation and fed her baby. There's not that many lactation consultants that actually really have expertise in inducing lactation. There just aren't. And getting domperidone is also really hard. You can get it from Thailand or from Switzerland. One is super expensive, one is cheaper, but and it's also not legal in the US because how dangerous to induce lactation.
Right.
But Alyssa Chanel's book was my Bible, and I used that the entire way through. And I will also say, like, I spent a lot of energy and money on herbs because I'm an herbalist and I believe in herbal medicine and wanted to support myself. But honestly, nothing worked like Domperidone worked. And Golacta, which is this Malungai, it's a supplement. Those are the two things that work the best. Like, and I took tons of like tinctures and all sorts of teas and stuff. And while I believe in plant medicine, those things really were negligible compared to the other things. So I do wish that I had spent less, if I had known that in advance. I had some like clogged ducts and stuff that were like challenging to get through, but I don't know if I could have really avoided that. If there's other support, I think if you meet with a lactation consultant and like it's not working or you don't really click, like meet with something else. If you can find a place to chest feed with others, that was like one of the best gifts I had, was that mother fed space where we were all together. I learned so much from those people. So cool. And it just also destigmatizes and takes away the like shame and bad feeling about it. It's just like, this is how it is. I don't think so. I think I was really supported.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to tell anyone watching who's like thinking about doing this or like already in the process of inducing lactation that you just would like love for someone to told you in the beginning?
One thing is like, and everyone did tell me this, but I didn't learn it until deep into the process. But I'll repeat it. It doesn't matter how much milk you make. It really doesn't matter how much milk you make. It matters that you're bonding with your kid. And so if you're stressing the fuck out about how much milk you're making and how much milk the baby's eating, that's actually not like serving the process, right? So as much of that surrender as you can find, and like letting go of the attachment of the idea of like, it has to go X way or it has to go Y way, right? When actually there's lots of ways to feed our babies. I would say listen to yourself and just shut out those people that are saying things about chest feeding or breastfeeding that you don't need to hear. Like I really just said to people like, yep, no thanks, no thanks, no thanks, no thanks. And then also just to make sure your partner's on board, because my partner was like really on board for this and it was still really hard. And we still had a lot of moments that were really difficult around it. So I just couldn't have done it alone. Like I really needed to know that like we were both invested in this, not just me as my project, you know? And in the beginning he was like waking up with me at 2 a.m. and at 5 a.m., you know, to feed and stuff, to pump. So I feel like I was so supported and so privileged to have really informed providers and people who were creative to work with me. So I don't think so.
Awesome. I just want to say thank you for sitting down with me and talking through your experience. It's just so fascinating and informative, really, and hopefully can be helpful to other people as they go through that. And I just really appreciate you in my life. Can I give you a hug?
The feeling is mutual. Oh, yeah. Love you too, Griffin.